It is 5:30, so we'll call to order the Board of Public Works, City of Marshfield, in the Council Hall Chambers. It is February 3rd of 2025, and item 2 is approval of minutes of the January 20th, 2025 Board of Public Works meeting.
So moved.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Nay. Okay, motion carries. Item 3, citizens' comments. Do we have any citizen comments? It looks like no one's here from the public. Move on to item number 4, approval of engineering services contract between Wisconsin DOT, MSA, and the city for design of South Vine Avenue, 4th Street to 14th Street, presented by Josh Moritz, Acting Public Works Director.
Thank you. So in the fall of 2022, we were notified that the city was selected to receive federal funding for the design and reconstruction of Vine Avenue from 4th Street to 14th Street. This funding is from an additional solicitation for the Surface Transportation Program made possible by the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, or Bill, of 2022. This is the same program from which the city received funding for the reconstruction of East 29th Street from Washington Avenue to Veterans Parkway, from Lincoln Avenue from 5th Street to Adler Road, and also 5th Street from Oak Avenue to Chestnut Avenue that will be constructed on 2026. Earlier this year, staff undertook an RFP process to solicit engineering services for this project. Procurement for engineering services must follow WSDOT procedures utilizing quality-based selection. Price does not factor into that when selecting a firm. Once a consultant is selected, WSDOT negotiates an agreement with the city's preferred consultant. If negotiations with the top-ranked firm don't reach an agreement, negotiations proceed to the next ranked firm. Ultimately, a 3-party agreement is executed between the municipality, WSDOT, and the consultant. The grant funds the cost of engineering design services and construction at 80% federal share with a 20% local share. So on September 24, MSA was selected as the preferred firm to provide engineering services for this project. Negotiations between WSDOT and MSA have now been completed. The proposed agreement is attached. The total cost for engineering services is $329,256 with a 20% local share of $65,851. The total project cost with construction is estimated at a little over $2.2 million with a local share of $446,000. Construction is currently planned for 2027. Our recommendation is to approve the engineering services contract between the city, WSDOT, and MSA Professional Services for design engineering services for the South Vine Avenue, 4th Street to 14th Street project, and authorize execution of the same.
Have a motion?
I'll second.
And a second. Any questions? Yeah, it's pretty hard to have. Garrett, anything?
I have
Go ahead, Russ.
two questions. The first one, we were talking about a little bit before the meeting, but the residence sidewalks along this stretch, how are those handled? Are residents given the option for new sidewalks? You would maybe go into that a little bit. And the other is what's happening at the federal level. Is there any risk that the grant funds would not be available, and what would be the contingency if that were to happen?
To answer your second question, we haven't heard anything from DOT to indicate one way or the other about availability of funding. I guess that's up in the air, but we haven't been notified of anything. As far as what we do if that money disappears, that would have to be probably discussed at CIP level and find a funding source. That's a huge hole to make up. So I imagine it would just be delayed and delayed.
So the project would be delayed. It wouldn't start maybe, or?
The design, well, even the design is a pretty big number, 329,000 that I don't think is in our CIP. So that the whole thing could be solved. Your question about sidewalk, if the construction funding does go through, it's an 80% share. So the city pays 20% of many of the items, including the sidewalk. So the remainder of that sidewalk gets assessed at, I think it's 50%, but in any case, you're only assessed for sidewalk that was in bad condition before the project started. So, it's not like you're paying for your entire frontage of sidewalk at that time.
And what's the criteria for bad sidewalk? You know, offhand?
There's several criteria we use in our annual sidewalk inspection program. There's a certain height of offset joints where one stone is higher than the other. One of the criteria is if it's broken into 4 or more pieces. There's some.
Thank you.
All right. Any more questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, our forester has been evaluating for all our upcoming projects, so they'll take a look first to see if there's any that they feel are maybe a hazard tree or should maybe come out anyway. There might identify some prized trees we'd really want to keep. But yeah, it's very difficult in a situation like that where you're replacing the street on one side, the sidewalk on the other. Usually those trees don't make it, but if we follow through like we've done on several of our recent projects, we will go through and plant trees to replace them. I think we planted 24 or 27 trees on 14th Street last year. So they don't replace necessarily what's there, but over time they will.
Yep. Any other question? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, request to approve lateral lining on South Maple Avenue, presented by Mark Cavellas, wastewater superintendent.
Good evening. South Maple Avenue, 17th Street to Central Avenue was scheduled for new pavement last year, along with some necessary underground utility rehabilitation. One of these was sanitary sewer replacements, but due to the prohibitively high cost of the bid to replace these unusually deep laterals, the project was delayed until 2025. The city has explored trenchless options to repair these laterals to minimize cost and avoid further delays. A specific lateral lining method called a T-liner from LMK Technologies is about the only method staff has found to properly rehabilitate these laterals without doing complete excavation replacements. This method utilizes a one-piece main and lateral connection liner with a watertight gasket that seals out infiltration. I've contacted LMK Technologies for a list of Wisconsin-based contractors that install these. They stated that Musson Brothers is the main contractor that installs these for municipalities in Wisconsin and is highly recommended. I reached out to Musson Brothers to obtain a quote for 25 lineable laterals on South Maple and to line the 3 remaining sewer mains on South Maple that have yet to be rehabbed. This would complete sewer main rehabilitations on South Maple all the way from 14th Street to South Central Avenue. Musson Brothers' quote is approximately $1,000 less per lateral versus excavation and replacement. Lining also avoids surface restoration, which saves an additional $1,000 or more per lateral. Recommendation is to accept Musson Brothers Incorporated quotation for lining 25 laterals and 756 feet of sewer main for a cost of $258,467 plus a 2% bond, which didn't make the memo. My bad. That adds $5,169.34 for a total of $263,636.34 and authorize staff to sign and execute this contract.
Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
The motion And a second from Derek. Any questions?
I do. I'm not familiar with the technology. I'm familiar with the old liners that would be pressurized with heated steam, I think, and they would expand. What are these T liners? What's the difference?
It's actually, lining has been around for a long time. We've been doing it for 20 years, and I apologize for not having the talk about example of some lining projects that we've done that was requested. Perhaps next meeting I'll have that put together for you. But that's been around for a long time, just straight line lining. It has been just in the recent years where it's actually a T, like a fitting that goes in the main that surrounds the entire main at a lateral connection point, and it goes up the lateral, and it also seals it. It's actually hydrophilic gaskets that go between the liner and the old main. So basically, you're putting a new fitting inside of that main line. That technology hasn't been around for a very long time at all. And this is the only company that we found that utilizes this infiltration reduction method of a hydrophilic gasketed seal between them. So this is why staff has deemed that this is really the only appropriate method to utilize a trenchless repair of these.
Yeah, no, it makes sense from a numbers perspective. And I didn't see it in their literature, but is there any chance that the lines would fail once the liners are pressurized, that the existing lines wouldn't be able to handle the liner? You know what I mean?
They have to meet all of the pipeline type criteria. So
it's on
engineers are more familiar with the
yeah,
piping. It's ASTM specifications. But
I guess if there was a failure during the work, it'd be up to Musson Brothers to rectify.
Oh, yes. Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Derek.
Thank you. In terms of longevity, compared to actual, replacements, which is what we were initially looking at, what does this look like, for a length of time that this would last? And then is there any warranty at all for coverage after, to Russ's point, if something were to go wrong during install, that's one thing, but what about, is there a certain time period after that we would be covered if anything were to happen?
For longevity, it's supposed to last as long as a typical PVC pipeline does. And I'm not sure of the warranty period exactly for either a PVC pipeline or this product. Both have their limitations to, I'm not sure if it's a year. I believe we withhold a retainage typically.
Yeah, typically we have a 1-year warranty on it.
Yep.
This same process, they would televise, inspect the laterals before and after the work is done. So we'd have a good look at whether the lining worked or not.
And if I may.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
If all things were equal, replacement is always the best option, but we save this for something that's extraordinarily deep, or if there's a lot of other utilities or a new street surface, that's where lining and trenchless repair shines, because then you're avoiding those other, costly items to overcome.
Okay. Any others? Nothing? Okay, we have a motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Looks like that one passes.
Thank you.
Item number 6. Final special assessments for 2024 East 14th Street reconstruction, presented by Josh Moritz, Acting Public Works Director.
So the next 3 items actually are all very similar. It's demonstrating the final special assessments for various projects. So on the memo, There's a table that indicates what we estimated certain items to cost up front, and then what they really came into once we had bids opened and project was completed. So there's several items. You can see all of them came in less than our estimate, some fairly significantly. So unless there's any questions, I would recommend to approve the special assessments for 14th Street reconstruction project.
Entertain motion. Motion from Mike, second from Derek. Any questions?
I do have one question.
Go ahead, Russ.
So now that we're kind of in a limbo regarding Director of Public Works, it's always nice, in my opinion, the estimates are higher than the actual. And I don't know if that was just luck of neck or Turchy, but it just seemed to work out that way. Is there any method to the madness? Because I could imagine that if you have a resident that sees an estimate, they're going to pretty much go to the bank with that and then come back with a higher number. But the city of Marshfield has always managed to come in lower than the estimate. So what's the story behind that?
Well, one thing right off the bat is the estimate includes a contingency percentage that oftentimes isn't needed during construction. So it's there as a contingency. It might be used, it might not. So that's
Okay.
part of it. And I think asphalt prices probably came in lower than we had projected. That's why some of the top items, the cost was just quite a bit more on the estimated.
Okay. Thanks.
Anyone else? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Item 7, final special assessment for 2024 asphalt paving projects presented by Josh Morris, Acting Public Works Director.
All right, thanks. This is the same thing. There's many more streets to this. There were a street that was subcut, meaning the pavement was removed, material was dug out and rebuilt. That was originally slated as an overlay. So the only assessed items on that project were the concrete driveway entrances. So those came in about 9% below the estimated. The next street is a mill and fill, where we mill out the asphalt pavement, leave the existing curb in place and repave it. So those estimates the finals came in about 20% less than the estimated. There were 2 alleys that we pulverized and repaved. Those estimates came in 22, and I'm not sure about the 49% under. I'd have to double check that one. That one looks a little strange to me. I will double check that. The pulverized and repaved ditch streets is the bulk of the asphalt paving program. And those assessments also came in at, frontage came in about 20% less. And the culvert prices, actually, to your point, Russ, they did not have a contingency built in the estimated. So those came in at full cost. So my recommendation for the asphalt paving program is to approve the special assessments.
I'll move to approve.
Motion. A second from Derek. Any questions? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Item 8, final special assessments for 2024 sanitary sewer projects, presented by Josh Morris, Acting Public Works Director.
All right, on this memo, there were 3 streets that had sanitary sewer work done on them. Chestnut Avenue, Depot to Blodgett, 2 different segments. Depot Street from Chestnut to Central, and also Maple Avenue from Central to 16th. And the only assessable item were the sewer laterals themselves. And those came in roughly 9% below the estimated. The other item in the memo, there was a sewer lateral and water service that we put in at 3219 South Cherry. We were down there to repair a planned repair on one sewer lateral, and there was another one to the opposite side of the street that it was deep, and it just made sense to replace that one at the same time. So that became an accessible item. And so the estimated, we already knew the cost at that time. That came out to be $7,983.11. The estimated was the same as the final on that. And they were notified in the same manner as the others. They got an estimated assessment letter early on. So I would recommend to approve the final special assessments for the 2024 sanitary sewer project.
Entertain motion from Fire,
I'll second.
second from us. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Item 9, recommended items for future agendas.
I've got one.
Go ahead,
Maybe
Russ.
get a report from the street department, how they're doing on snow removal and salt reserves and that kind of thing.
Anything else? Yeah, should be good. All right, entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Fire.
We're staying.
Don't fight, guys. Second from Wortman. All those in favor say aye.
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 Adjourned.